Hey guys, John Riley. Welcome back to another episode of Bushcraft Bumps. It's been a while. Figured I'd take it back a little bit, back to basics. Touching back on some things I covered years ago and try and redo them and maybe make things a little better than they were in the past. But today we're going to work on a couple of basic shelters, utilizing a tarp or a poncho. I've done these a lot with ponchos, but today we're going to be using this. This is a little 6x8 Silnai tarp I picked up on Amazon. And so what you're going to need for this, you get a little tarp or a poncho, some cordage. We're going to need some tent stakes. I have a couple prepared here, but I figured I'd leave these are just a couple of ones I made out of wood here in the yard, but I figured I'd make one or two on camera just so you could see. Alright, so the first one I'm going to make is pretty basic. I just have a straight piece of stick. I don't know, maybe that's about 10 inches long. And I'm just going to put a point on there real quick to get into the ground. You can just use an axe or tomahawk for that. A couple of good chops. Shape it right into place. Get a pretty decent point on there. Alright, and then we just need a little notch to where the string can kind of take hold. Something to the string to bite in. That's pretty easy. There's elaborate ways of doing this, but I just like to make a nice straight press cut. And then cut up. Leaves a nice little bite there for the string to take hold for your tent stakes. Okay, that's one way of doing it. And then another way of doing it is you can utilize a piece of the branch. Here's just a piece of a branch I cut off. You can utilize that as the bite of the string to catch the string. And I'm just going to cut this off right here with my hatchet. And that will serve as the part that comes in the ground. So the first thing I'm going to do is just trim this down to size. And now put a little point down there just like I did on the other one. Alright, now we can take this over. We'll start spreading up on the ground. Alright, I'll check back with you in a minute. Alright, so the first basic shelter we're going to do is just a basic A-frame. And this is pretty simple. I have my stakes here. I'm probably going to need about 6 stakes for this. And then I have a couple of poles I cut. These are just long poles. These are maybe about 3 feet tall, and they have a little point on the top. So what I'm going to essentially do is slip the center grommet over the top of this pole, and then I'm going to put a slip knot around it and stake it down. This is kind of going to come up. I'm going to find the center grommet. It's going to be like right there. Slide this over, doesn't have to be a lot. I'll put a slip knot over this and then stake this pole out. This will be my first line. So I'll tune you back in once that's done. Alright, so we're just putting this the main support up there. I just wanted to show the knot work I use here on this on the stake. It's kind of I call it a trucker's hitch, but it's pretty simple. I just wrap it around once around the stake. Then I'm going to take this end and wrap it around the main line. Go wrap it around a couple of times. They say 4 is the magic number, but 3 will work. And you pop it through. You have enough cordage to work with. And then this will enable you to tighten or loosen the cordage as you need to as you build your shelter. You may need more line or less line. It's kind of a constricting knot. So you can tighten it and adjust your shelter as you put it up and make adjustments on the fly. So I'm going to put the pole up on the other side and we'll tune you back in as we go. Alright, so we got the main supports up. Now we're going to go and stake out the sides. So the way I like to do this is I'm going to slide the one end of the cord through the grommet. I'm going to make a little slip knot around a little wooden toggle. It's just a piece of a branch. Make a little slip knot around there. Pull it tight, and then that'll grab the toggle, and it won't stress out my grommet at all. So I'm going to stake out the sides, and I'll make those with a trucker's hitch onto these stakes here, so I can adjust the tension, and then I'll tune you back in once that's done. Alright, so I'm just putting the finishing touch on the final knot here. Final hitch. Tighten that up, and this Like I said, this gives me the ability to adjust the tension of the shelter how I want. And that's pretty much my completed shelter right there. This is a completed basic A-frame shelter. And this is a basic kind of entry-level bushcrafter skill. It's held up entirely by tension, but it's actually pretty sturdy. The only knots I've used are that simple trucker's hitch and slip knots. I use slip knots on the toggles and on the top of the poles. And this is a pretty sturdy, I mean, overall, considering a pretty sturdy shelter. I would have no problem spending the night there. It does offer protection, moderate protection on both sides. You could even pull this tighter if you needed to. And it can really be any height. You could build a shelter like this over a hammock if you wanted. You could put your bedroll, sleeping bag underneath. You still have room to sit up if I was to come under here. I mean, I could crouch, I could sit, I could lay, and I feel pretty well protected under here. So it's a A-frame shelter is a decent entry-level bushcraft shelter. One more I'll try to demonstrate real quick is a lean-to, and it's a very similar configuration, but it doesn't require quite as many anchor points, and it doesn't give you quite as much protection from the elements. But we'll do that real quick. It's another entry-level bushcraft shelter. I'll tune you right back in a minute. Alright, so we're going to start the basic lean-to shelter. Depending how high you want to make this really determines how you stake out the back. If you're going to make it really high, you can stake the back out with lines and so it can be adjusted. This is going to be a basic low shelter lean-to, so I just made some shallow stakes here that I can fit through the grommets. And I'm just going to grommet, stake these grommets right to the ground. Yeah, actually. There's one. I'm going to stick out the other corner right here. The ground's pretty mushy today, so I don't even really need to sharpen these up too much. We had a lot of rain here over the past few days. So now that those are staked out, it's pretty easy and down and dirty. I'm going to take these poles from before, and these will be the top main supports of my shelter. And what I'm going to do is, just like before, I'm going to kind of loop this over the top. You can thin those out if you want to, but it doesn't even really need to be looped out. Thinned out. And I'm going to basically put a slip knot around there, stake it out, and then do the trucker's hitch. So I'll tune you in as I get that done. Alright, so we got the first post up over there, and now I'm just putting the second post up. So the same thing, I'm just kind of finding a good solid ground, passing the grommet over the little point there. I'm going to wrap a slip knot around there real quick. Avoid the pack of wild dogs in the background. Cinch that up. Now I can just kind of stake this out. Here. Through. I can tighten these up as I need to. Loosen them as I need to. Alright, that's your basic lean-to shelter. I mean, you can see this provides a quick cover from the rain or the elements, but it doesn't really give you a lot of cover, you know, if the winds are shifting. If you know pretty much where the prevailing wind's going to come from, you can adjust it, but it's not going to give you a lot of coverage. A lot of people use lean-tos in cohesion with a fire. They'll make a reflector wall, try and reflect the fire back into them. With a tarp lean-to like this tarp is very susceptible to heat, so even those little embers that kick off the fire will burn through this. But I've slept under a lean-to shelter like this plenty of times with no ill effects. The problem sometimes with a lean-to is that the back kind of drifts down like this. One way you can do that is with a button rock. I'm going to try and see if I can do that now. We'll tune you back in a minute. I mentioned this, the kind of one way to get the fabric up a little more so it's not kind of hanging down so much is to use a button rock. I'm going to do that right here. It's just a little stone off the ground. I'm going to put this kind of in the middle of the tarp right here and bunch it up. Bunch the tarp up around it, and then I'll put a little slip knot around that piece of fabric. Probably should have had the loop on before I turned the camera on, but that's how you know I'm keeping it legit here, folks. Alright, so we got that right there. Just going to tighten it up. Rock. Alright, and now I can pull tension on that. What I'm going to do here is bring this back here to this stick. I can put a trucker's hitch here if I want, or even stake this out. So what I might do is actually bring this down a little bit, try and see if I can stake this out. I'll tune you back in a second once I get that staked out. Alright, so there's the button rock holding up. I kind of just use this little pole for some leverage, staked it down to the ground, and it gives me a lot more room without the top of the shelter drooping down, so you can come around the front and see. And again, this is another shelter that's held together entirely by opposing tension. And this gives me a lot more room in the lean-to. I can actually sit up in here without really feeling like too cramped. You can lay down. It gives a nice little bit of coverage, really quick to put up. I put this up maybe in about 10 minutes. So it's a really quick shelter, good entry-level bush skill. The ability to construct a shelter out of things that you have in your backpack or in your environment is one of the key survival skills and a key foundation of bushcraft. You should always have a poncho or a good little tarp in your bush bag or your backpack, regardless of what you're doing. So it's a good little skill to have and to practice. Nothing fancy, entry level stuff, but thanks for watching.